Real life sucks. Okay, maybe not, but sometimes it's a little unfantastic. Sometimes you just want to be anime, you just want to be crazy, or you know what, you just want to go into a different world, okay? You just need to go to a different space, come back another day. I totally get that. Be somewhere else, be someone else. And you know what, my channel is all about finding those kind of things, doing those sort of stuffs, finding the hype, and keeping it alive. If the gameplay in the background already entices you, links in the description. This is a sponsored video, but you can jump in, 7-day free trial to this game. It's super cheap, buy once, play forever. Black Desert freaking online, guys. This is a game that it's gorgeous. So yeah, I totally get it. You peeled some eyeballs on the game and now you can't peel them white. But if you want to know a little bit more, we're actually going to peer deeper past the surface a little bit. We're going to be asking and answering the question, how anime is Black Desert Online? Whatever that even means. I don't know. It's a pretty arbitrary thing to try to distinguish about a game. But to me, it's like, how hype is it? How fantastic is it? And you know, how similar is it to general generic anime? I guess. I don't know. I think it's a fun video. It's a fun game. So, you know what? Let's do it. Is Black Desert anime AF? Let's find out. Alright guys, so I don't think this is going to take too long. I just have a list of 10 incredibly arbitrary reasons why something might or may not be anime AF. And I think the first thing, and the most obvious thing, is looking at the game. The graphics. Are they anime graphics? Is it styled like anime? And while I can definitely see the case for some games kind of extrapolating from like an anime inspiration and then kind of moving in a more realistic direction, Black Desert is very, very realistic. It is incredibly high fidelity, and for an MMO, it's like the most gorgeous, graphically intensive game. But anime, you can kind of see it in certain stylings, certain clothing. It's definitely in the painterly spell effects, absolutely. And in terms of like the motions, yeah, I guess it is a video game. It is playing in real time. There are some things that are very anime inspired, but direct anime, no, it's not 2D, no, it's not cell shaded, it's not even attempting to really look like anime, it's really just more kind of barely inspired. So, you know, that maybe is a point away from it, but for what it is, it's freaking fantastic, and it doesn't dim the hype whatsoever. Okay, so maybe it looks like a duck, but does it quack like a duck? Or does it sound like anime? And some people don't realize this, but anime actually does have a sound. Particularly, you know, Japanese animation generally actually has almost like its own language. So if you think you could just learn Japanese from an anime, it doesn't quite work like that. Nani? Yeah, no, seriously. People just don't walk around talking like that. Then again, do people walk around talking like YouTubers? I don't know. But basically, guys, here is also the part of the video where I want to talk about specifically the definition of anime. Does it sound like anime? Well, Japanese language, does it matter? To me, it doesn't have to be a Japanese game made for a Japanese audience and everything has to be weebified. That's not quite what I mean by anime. Obviously inspired and obviously a part of the look and the feel and the sound, which this game doesn't quite have that sound to it. It's really more very kind of subtle, but in the end, I think a lot of cartoons can emulate anime, or webtoons can look like manga, which I'm sure you guys are all falling into right now. So yeah, my definition of anime is a much broader definition than some people might have, so hopefully that's fine, and it really should be for this type of video. But yeah, does Black Desert sound like anime? No, not quite. But at the same time, the music, oh my gosh, even though it's not the cliche sounds, the cliche language, this music though, not anime inspired, but goodness, it is fantastic. And you absolutely should just listen to it on its own when you get the chance. And next up, does it play like, I don't know, anime? Does it play like a historic Japanese genre of game? Does it have influence from other games that were influenced by anime and Japanese culture? The answer is like, check box everything, yes, it does. So firstly, fighting games. Historically, Japanese-owned genre, Japanese-inspired for most of those titles, and a lot of games that have fighting game influences also very much wear their anime inspiration right on the graphics. So this game, while it doesn't look or sound quite anime, it totally plays like anime. So Japanese inspiration, fighting game, combos, abundant. The game is so fast-paced, and nextly, also in anime, there's generally a trope of being overpowered, generally a trope of, you know, things like harem, stuff like that, and just being all-encompassing like a god, as a, you know, like from going from a normal person leveling up to just, you know, this crazy power fantasy. That is this game, 100%. But in the style of a grinding action RPG fighting game. Absolutely. If you ever played the PvP, you probably know what I'm talking about. Learning all these combos, the speed of the game, the hypeness, absolutely, and then also just the fact that, you know, just how many buttons you'll be pressing outcompetes, overcompetes every game. It's really quite overdone. It's pretty ridiculous. But yeah, if you want to play like a fighting game but PvE oriented, and then also mix in some PvP, just be able to smash faces and have a ridiculous power fantasy that you do also see in anime. So yeah, in most ways, Japanese inspired, anime inspired. Yeah. The gameplay loop overall. Yeah, I think this game plays anime AF. But we got more of the list to go, so let's keep going. Okay, and now references, right? That's just the most immediate way to show that the developers care about, you know, where their players are coming from, what type of game this is, what kind of players that attracts, what kind of world setting they're actually building, and then what references they can pull that obviously wear their inspiration on the sleeve here. Like, I honestly have made this video thinking like, you know, this game was pretty anime inspired, and I remember actually playing through it and thinking I saw a bunch of references, especially from Berserk. There's characters that look just like Shirke or other characters. There's world settings, different areas that just look like it's pulled from Berserk. The art style in general is very dark, gothic, but anime fantasy, actually just full on, they totally had a Berserk crossover. So, yeah, the references are there, and there's probably even more that I don't know about because they're, you know, they're little Easter eggs. You gotta go find the Easter eggs, friends and family, and you guys please let me know in the comments below if you know any, but Berserk is undoubtedly a huge inspiration for this game, and definitely more manga inspired, because does Berserk have an anime? Just kidding, I know it does. But yeah, Berserk. Yeah, that's the one main reference. There's at least one, and it's a big reference. So manga, anime, inspiration, anime AF, we are on the way here. And okay, so there's a couple of tropes that I could have put on here. I could have made this like a list of like 100 things that anime do that maybe a game could do. I could be a lot more comprehensive, whatever. Guys, I've got one here that I think is a huge like, okay, duh, that's anime AF. And that's gonna be big fuck off lasers, basically. One thing that whenever somebody asks me, like, you know, if an MMO is cool or not, the next thing they ask is like, do they got energy blasts? Do they got Kamehamehas? You know, can I do Rasangans and spirit bombs and things like that? So, yeah, yes. Getsuka 10 shows and pretty much every type of ridiculous anime, you know, staple power ability, big bombastic bombs and big fuck off lasers. Yeah, this game literally has Kamehamehas. So yes, this is the one thing where it's like, okay, what makes something anime? But what makes something anime as fuck? Big fuck off lasers. That's what they do. So yeah, the answer is yes, and much more. All right, guys, but now halfway point doesn't go fast. I think a lot of animes, you know, because of the whole overpowered trope, and the idea of anime is also, you know, bridging from manga. Generally, you'll see that it's pretty quickly paced. You know, the way you read comics, and especially the way you read manga, can be pretty quick. It can be pretty hasty, I think, compared to something like a novel, and especially Western literature. It's pretty fast, and then when you carry it over to anime, it can be slowed down a bit, but it's still pretty quick, and generally also, again, because of the power scaling, things kind of get faster, and just get a little bit ridiculous. Does this game go fast? It's the fastest. It's fast. It is almost only fast. But being a sandbox game, you can kind of play it the way you want to. So the game can have a different pace depending on how you play. But in general, for most things that you do in this game, the power fantasy kicks in immediately. Not only that, but depending on how you play, again, you can go blisteringly fast. So fast that your eyes and fingers cannot keep up, which also kind of plays into the whole combo-oriented gameplay and the grind and, you know, how much information is on the screen at once. It's fantastic power fantasy. Absolutely. So does this go fast? In terms of MMORPG, in terms of any game that might look like this, it is the fastest. But here's a trope that I did want to add in that I thought was really potent. I think a lot of people might be turned off based on the anime sort of promotion I'm doing here. Like, oh man, this game is anime as hell, or is it not? But one thing that depends on how you feel about it is the trope of kids save the day. Often there's a younger cast or a more cartoony or childish look to the animation and of the game, and obviously just the general art. No, this game is dark fantasy. It's mature, it's adult oriented, and it's gonna look like that. It's gonna feel like that and sound like that in almost every single way. So yeah, a big trope of anime is it kind of more childish looking? Nope, this game, while I think it can be fun for younger audiences to an extent, it is a very dark game with very mature topics. So yeah, I would promote it to like 18 and up, definitely. If you're a grown adult, I think you're gonna have a lot of fun with this game. As much as I'm promoting it like, oh man, it's anime AF. I'm just kind of taking like the hype of anime, basically, is what I'm saying. I'm just doing this for shits and giggles, guys. But this game is not just giggles and shits. This game can actually have some pretty serious topics that go down in some of the quests and the world building as well, and just in terms of the gameplay. Is it little kids running around doing Kamehamehas? Not quite. It's grown-ass men running around, slaughtering hordes of enemies with Kamehamehas. So, a little different. Next up, one thing that you see often inside of anime is very, very weird world settings, which is something that I really appreciate about manga as well as anime in general, webcomics too. I just really like how even isekais, right, which can be so tropey and so generic, it's still, they always add in some weird twists and things that you just almost never see. But actually, Black Desert Online, this is a point against the anime AF thing, is that this is, for a fantasy, actually very, very standard. Overall, a lot of the creatures, enemies, while they might have kind of a strange look to them, they're pretty obvious. You know, you got your goblin races, you got your elves. Overall, it's like a historic European sort of setting. Some areas are going to be a little bit different, like maybe a little bit tropical here or there. But for the most part, this is a European-inspired, medieval, magical, and massively multiplayer online RPG, but it's in how the game plays, it's in the game how it actually flows, and what you actually see on the screen in terms of the UI, the numbers, things like that. All that is very Korean inspired, and obviously, like, the gameplay, anime AF, but in terms of like the world and the technical monsters and the people inside of it, the races, no, it's actually very standard RPG fare. So take that what you will. I personally think it's a very interesting combination of having these aesthetic, this theme that's very Western, and then everything else in terms of like how the game actually feels to be Eastern. It's unique, it's new, I like it. Okay, and the final, I guess, trope that I want to talk about here at number 9 is going to be, does it have waifus? It does got waifus. Waifu here, waifu there, everywhere. It has waifus. Yes. Yes, it has waifus. And husbandos. Don't get me wrong, definitely. Equal opportunity employer. This is one of the most expressive games out there, especially with the character customization. What you can do with your personal waifu or husbando is kind of unfathomable, especially inside of an MMORPG where there's just tons of other players running around, meeting up with your friends. You can look so drastically different. I love the costume design in this game. Definitely worth the wait or the money if you can get into them. I really appreciate the flavor of Black Desert Online. While it might be very tropey in terms of Western or European historical, the costumes and the way players can present themselves is very anime. I'm gonna be honest, it's the original reason why I even played this game, and the aesthetic of a class. In no other game has it been the deciding factor of why I play it. And yet, main a class in this game because she be my waifu. So yeah, are the waifus here? They exist. Are they good? Oh my god, yes. And the gameplay oriented around that is actually pretty deep. I mean, some people literally just make a game out of making waifus because the character creator is just that good. And because you have the beauty book and you can share those creations with everyone else and be ranked on like a leaderboard sort of thing. Yeah, I don't think any other game has a waifu system quite as in-depth as this. And finally, our last little point that I want to make here, which I think kind of enwraps everything all together, is really just asking the question, how often is it anime AF? Because a game might have a reference here or there, or maybe some of the gameplay might potentially be considered anime. Some of it might be anime AF, but how often is it really anime as fuck, right? That's a good question, and Black Desert Online has a very interesting answer that kind of is a double-edged sword against it. So quite often it can be anime AF, but also quite often it could not look like that, feel like that, sound like that at all. See, Black Desert Online is a sandbox MMORPG, which means you can play it kind of to how you want to. You can, in some ways, I actually did a whole video on it, just play the game as an entire pacifist. Like literally, you don't do any of the grinding or the combat. You could just fish. Like if you just want to be a fisherman, you could just do that. In a lot of ways, you can play this game AFK or just focus on hoarding and building up your little empire or currency trading, things like that. Or yeah, you can play this game and you could just be tossing out Kamehamehas, blowing up entire mountains of mobs. You know, it can be really ridiculous. And there's a blending and an ebb and flow that you as a player sort of live a life inside of Black Desert Online that might not or may so be anime sometimes, all the time, maybe never. And that is a really potent reason why you should definitely check out this game. How you feel about that, that's on you, but overall, I really do appreciate that mixing and that choice in that gameplay loop for me. Outro time. So, in finality, how anime is it? Well, we've got 4 points against it to being anime, but out of the 10, we got 6 for, I think, in general. I think I'm kind of rounding up. I feel like the last point was kind of a 0.5. Whatever. Anyways, is Black Desert anime AF? Well, it sure can be. It sure absolutely can be. And while in some ways it seems drastically going in the opposite direction, in other ways it's a more potently anime AF than like any other game, especially in this particular genre. Is it a game you should be checking out? Yeah, absolutely. But I just want to also thank my sponsors, Black Desert, for, showing me that this game has such potential. They constantly actually ask me to do these sponsorships. I say yes. I find a new way to play this game every time. I see a new way to look at this game every time, to appreciate the music, to appreciate the art, to appreciate the gameplay. And I feel like this fun, weird video, while maybe not making too much sense at all, is the sort of nonsensical thing that just allows me to see the world, this world, in a new perspective. It's just really cool to kind of, I don't know, jump out of reality into a fantasy, and I do think that Black Desert Online is pretty fantastic, so. But you know what's really cool is when games or reality crosses over with the fantasy. Black Desert Online is actually doing this really cool in-game event. So you can support Black Desert Online's IRL charity to support endangered wildlife. There's going to be a small quest line in-game where players can collect tokens, and then they can choose which specific animal they'd like to help out. So yeah, fantasy reality, they don't got to be so departed from each other all the time. But yeah, make sure you click the link down below to jump into Black Desert, which just recently turned 4 years old. There's an in-game festival to celebrate all that good stuff. Also, click that link, you get a free week of game time. So yeah, the charity event dates are from 3/11 to 3/18. And yeah, the sponsorship is all a part of the promotion of that. Thanks, Black Desert, for being you. Thanks for the sponsorship. Thanks, friends and family, for jumping in. And I do also want to give an extra special thanks to those who actually support me on Patreon to allow me to do these bigger essay style or highly more, a little bit kind of produced videos. Thanks. I'm having so much fun. Life is but a dream. And sometimes that dream is just anime as fuck. Woo!